Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the boss part of RJA Revealed. Now these boss songs are only in the final pool, the playoffs pool of the tournament, and canonically this is actually the final video in the series, but I'm uploading it and making it first out of courtesy to Schmooey. Now the reason for that is because he is breaking down Deluge for this video. I was not able to even come close to figuring out this song. In fact, I didn't even try because I just knew straight away I couldn't do it. So he was very kind enough to do it for all of you, not just me. He's helping us all out with this because I believe he's still the only person to ever see it. Anyway, so yeah, it's going to be him on Deluge, and I'm going to be doing War as usual. So the title will still make at least some sense. So yeah, we will get straight on with it with Deluge anyway now. So let's do it. Okay, so before we get to Schmooey's explanation and performance of this song, I'm going to go over the path first. Now, while I'm not the one doing runs of this song, in fact, I think I had one run of this song, and then decided I can't do this and never played it again. So I'm bad at it, but I can at least understand the path and explain it for you all. So yeah, like a lot of other songs, 4 activations seems to fall. A lot of the tournaments songs seem to fall around that amount for some reason. But yeah, we'll look at it right now. So, first activation. No whammy at all, and a very obvious activation spot right here. So, for pretty much the whole song, at least Schmooey taps the whole majority of it, which makes sense considering it's a tapping-based song. So yeah, we'll be tapping while activating here. Now, having watched the video, I couldn't tell exactly how he was activating. Maybe it was a pedal or something, but he was able to like activate while without having to press the button or tilt or anything. So I don't know, maybe you can explain that or clarify that. I'm assuming it's a pedal or a button of some sort, or maybe just like a very a micro tilt. Maybe the guitar is wired that way that you barely have to tilt at all to activate, and you basically just have to twitch the guitar on it and activate. I'm not sure. But either way, it was able to activate right here. So this activation, it's all, I don't know if they're 30-second triplets or 16 triplets, I can't be bothered counting, but fast notes. So getting all of these, I mean, you could activate a bit later if you wanted to as well, as long as you don't overlap this phrase right here. And yeah, pretty obvious activation, first activation. The only thing that would be a problem is either if you don't have a device to activate, like with your foot or something else, a tilt activation here. But yeah, obvious enough. Now, second activation, we get this phrase, and this phrase which ends on whammy, and it's in its immediate activation after this whammy. Now, obviously if it was me I would be tilting, but Schmooey uses a World Tour guitar and has the ingenious idea to use a slider bar to whammy these notes. Now, I didn't realise that was a possibility, but I guess you can put it that way, that using the touch strip can whammy these notes for you. Well, I guess I say for you, but instead of using the whammy bar. So yeah, and therefore doesn't have to move his hand down to the whammy bar to whammy these notes and right back up to start off this tapping bit. So yeah, very smart. Your hand's already next to the notes as you're whammying, and the activation once again done using some sorcery that I'm not sure what it is, but you know, probably a pedal. But yeah, once again, much like the first activation, gets a bunch of triplet notes and ends. You know, you don't have to activate immediately really, but just keeps you on the right track and ends in the middle of it. So yeah, second activation, obvious again. Third activation, easy whammy, easy whammies, and the activation point right here is kind of arbitrary. This note exactly is going to be really hard to activate on. So what I would do, and what Schmooey does as well, as it happens, he delays it to halfway through this measure. So instead of it being whatever this is, the 8th yellow with triplets, it's right there, smack bang in the middle of the measure, activating right here, and doesn't lose any points because we still get this overlap. We get this overlap even easier, in fact. So there's a lot smaller chance of missing this overlap. And we don't lose any points because it's all the same speed of notes once again. And all that happens is, instead of ending here, we end right here. Or like here, somewhere a bit later. And I'm pretty sure the only reason it tells you to activate here is because if you get good whammy, this is the earliest you can activate and still overlap. So this would make it unnecessarily tight. So yeah, delaying activation, no problem at all, as long as you don't delay it so much that you end somewhere in measure 78. Okay, and they're all the big activations. All you're really doing in this song for the first three is activating over these trills, these 32nd or 16th triplet trills. I'm pretty sure they're 32nd triplets actually. Well, yeah. Or maybe not. No. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I don't know why I'm getting hung up on that. Anyway, yeah, that's what you're doing. You're activating over these trills for the first three activations. And the final activation is a very simple activation. Doesn't matter if you can't use a pedal or a button or whatever, because it's right here. There's a whammy here, but nothing crazy there. It's right here in this slow part of the song. So we're just waiting, after we get these two phrases, waiting for this very slow hook down, yellow, blue, yellow, red, and we're activating on the red. And that's about it, yeah. 635k is the score it gives us. Schmooey gets 634k. So yeah, 1k off this presumed optimal, using pretty much the same path, but losing, modifying the path here, but losing no points from the modifications. So yeah, that's the path of Deluge. Now I'll get out of the way and let Schmooey explain this song for you, because I sure as hell cannot. So we'll go over there now.
Hello everyone. With this song, it really comes down to raking precisely, whether it be with two-finger raking or meme raking for the orange walls that are within the chorus. I'll take you step by step throughout the whole song. With this intro here, it's pretty simplistic. Low notes per second trills that can be easily one-handable. There's nothing much really to them. You can just one-hander and tap them if you want. There will be a, not even fast bit, but just a sped up bit of the trills start coming up right here. Now what you just saw was me raking through that strumming. You could strum it if you want, since they are technically in a strumming pattern, but since they're tabs, you can just choose to do either or. You do that if you're good at one-handing after the transition, or you can try to do a triple rake into that. You won't really see a difference when it comes to ghosting that, so whatever works, or whatever is your forte with that. The first verse is kind of weird. You can do this however you want. And the run that I did that I got nearly optimal on, I'll actually get to that later. This comes down to just, simple rate tapping, whether it be two fingers or three if you're uncomfortable or not confident in your ability with that. But this is suited for basically two-finger raking, as you're seeing right here. Now there's this smooth transition that goes into an orange wall. You can choose to meme rake it for for it being max clean. When it comes to meme raking, you can really transition with two fingers and slowly go into three, which gives you more ability to hit things more consistently. This part though, in the run that I did a quad chimney with a triple rake, which hits everything pretty convincingly, which has a couple things of ghosting here and there. But then the bit afterwards, where it has some fretting changes like this, I do a quick triple rake to catch up on these trills right here, so that you can either all tap them, but since some people are not fast enough to do that, you really just have the triple rate. That's probably the most technical part of the song, really. You have this one-handy bit, and some other trills. You can tap it or rake it if you want. Now, what's coming up here is this chord tappy bit. Now, whether or not you're good at one-handing, if your dexterity is good, you can just choose to do that and say that your dexterity is not good. It's just a simple solution. It's not that hard to alt-tap. Start by tapping the first chord right here, and you're only going to tap that and the red-orange. So, what am I tapping now? I'm going to tap those two chords in particular. And at the end, I tap the red, yellow. So there you go. You can either one-hand this or tap. So then you go into the first chorus. It's basically the same bit in the intro that we just played, except it doesn't go into an orange wall. It really just comes down to smooth two-finger raking. What you did see there were those sweeps that come afterwards. Of course, you're gonna double or triple rake this. If you're gonna triple rake, you're gonna have a better head start on hitting these sweeps, since there's an extra yellow at the end of that trill. You can do this however you want, really. If you're fast enough, you can probably one-hand this. But you really start off on hitting the first trip after the yellow, which is right here. You basically fret a zig at these last couple of notes, at the blue-orange bit that's almost like a trill, and it's basically a descending trip. Here's the verse 2A, which will have some reverse chimneys and some ascending trips. You can alt-tap that if you want, or one-hand it for the sake of getting the whammy. That. But then here comes this blue wall, which scares a lot of people. This shouldn't really scare you. I mean, even if you're a hint of fast, you don't have to tap long enough to where you run out of your bursting ability. But you can simply do this by fretting a yellow-blue, whether it be ascending or a zig. Then you fret a red-blue, and you're always going to fret a red-blue. If you want to do this for max clean, you do the yellow-blue into just a blue right after. So yes, you always maintain red and blue with your fretting hand. But say that you don't really want to go for max clean, but you still want to keep, morals. You can ghost the yellow, but just simply keep on going with yellow and blue, and not having to do the singular blue. Just hit it. If you're not comfortable with bursting, you can simply just do a 3-finger slide method just like that. It only takes 2 inputs. Or if you just want to get it done with, you just use 4 fingers. Sliding isn't another topic of its own. If you want to get good at it, you just gotta utilize all fingies. And you'll more than likely devour that whole pattern. It's not as scary as it is. You have this one-handy bit, the set sustain. And really it's just a build-up to the only hard part, really, for me in this song, is the second chorus. It's basically the same as the first chorus, except it will eventually transition into the orange wall. You'll have those sweeps like we had after the first chorus. Now this is really the hardest part throughout the whole song, because after you say that you are uneven with the amount of inputs you do for these triplet sweeps, you probably have to do an extra input like this to make sure you're on the right track for hitting this transition. Let's say that you aren't. You know, it's simple. Descending trips, and it looked easy at first for me to meme rate that, but as you put the speed up, it's a lot harder than it looks. I'm gonna head over to full speed now. You can either do this, really 3 ways. Of course, you can do it with a meme rating. I even missed that transition. It's not easy. So, plus you can also try and do the transition with 2 fingers to go into 3. It helps a lot of people to do that. So you have that option. The one that I did for my 125 FC is that I just did a singular triple rate. Another way you can do it is, of course, alt tapping it. I know some people are not comfortable doing that since they're probably not fast enough. That's fine. There's plenty of other options you can do. Or you can go, you know, an easy route and slide the whole thing. The way that I did it in the FC that you probably had seen, I did a mixture between sliding and raking for the sake of showcasing as many methods as I can, along with the quad chimney bit that I did in the intro. And then of course you got those trips right after. Head over to that. So yeah, this is really the hardest part of the song. Once you get it down, it really comes to like sewing it down and just getting consistent at the transition to be able to perform it in a run. And even if you have the technique down, you can probably get this FC in no time. And of course we have these ascending trips. You're more than likely to hit that orange as your last tapping input. Like there, because my tapping hand is hitting the yellow. Not that bad, no. So, and really there's only a couple hard bits left. It's within the verse. Oh yeah, and one thing that might throw some people off, like via sight read, you're going to be strumming this bit until you hit this red. And now I know strum notes and tap notes look similar, but don't strum the red afterwards. It'll automatically hit since it's a tap note. It works that way. See? Once you enter verse 3, whether or not you're nervous is one thing, but say that you are, you gotta worry about this trill bit right here. That's of course, you know, you can do this simply with 2-finger raking. Simply do it all tapping. Your all tapping may be a bit off when it comes to the amount of inputs you do. They'll probably be uneven. But say that you're fast enough, you're probably going to be able to cheese it without there being much ghosting in it anyways. Or, if you want to go the safe route, you slide it. You slide the top bit right here for the orange, and slide everything in the middle, since it's just a red, blue, and then green, yellow. So top it, orange, middle. See? And there's nothing else that comes afterwards. You will have just one-handed part. Just waiting for it. right here. And that's just about it. Just slow sustains. And that's it. That should be the path.
Okay, so here we have the path for war. This path was pretty simple actually, so it's not going to take too long to go through it. So yeah, we'll just do it. The song's short as well, so that obviously helps with the path being relatively simple, only 4 activations. So yeah, first act, 1, 2 phrases without whammy, and then we have our third phrase, which is a whammy phrase. So and you see we activate straight after this long yellow-orange sustain. Now, much like other songs in the tournament, when this happens, where it's a whammy immediately followed by a strum note in the activation, and pretty much any note after a whammy phrase actually, I just opted for a tilt act. So yeah, just tilting towards the very end of this note, hopefully activating on this note, and ending right here, hopefully getting a few extra ticks if we squeeze this correctly. Now, people were activating, I think, here, and maybe squeezing an extra note, excuse me, here instead, which seemed to benefit them most of the time, but the only reason for that is because of Explorer whammy and the fact that I was tilt acting. I didn't really get it perfect. But if it was perfect, I would think I would get it dead on. But yeah, and I think they would have a second activation after this whammy or something. But yeah, wasn't much of a deficit, and you know, it's fine as an activation, just a tilt. So yeah, that's the first activation. Next we have whammy again, much like the third phrase. Same phrase, except this time we're not activating right after it. And then another 2 phrases without whammy. And the next activation, despite it being 3 measures later, is actually an immediate activation. It's next note, should I say. So yeah, really easy. Just get ready after this big break, and then activate. Nothing really to say there. There's no chance you'd overlap, because there's no whammy. So yeah, free. Really easy activation. Next, we obviously get this phrase, and this phrase, a whammy phrase during the solo. Potentially missable because of for some reason the forcing here with these 2 notes confuse me. I don't know why, but yeah, that's not in the phrase, but it's right before the phrase, and sometimes that can throw you off. Luckily for me, that I never missed this phrase. I don't think I missed any of the phrases in this song because they're all fairly simple. But yeah, a bit of whammy. And then our next activation is a bit like the second. We have a break, big-ish break, not an entire measure this time, but we get what, 3 bars. And we activate at the start of the constant 16th strumming, so we have this bit like Existo Vulgara, pretty much exactly the same as it actually. So yeah, after the break, activate straight away on this note, no chance of overlapping. I don't think you could get enough whammy, anywhere near enough whammy to overlap this phrase. So yeah, pretty fine, activating here, very easy to remember. Then after that we have 2 more phrases, and our final activation, which is, I mean, for the rest of the song it's all the same thing, except for the very end, which has no chords. So, it says to activate here on this pretty arbitrary note. I chose not to do that. And since it's an overlap, and I definitely don't want to miss the overlap, I just went for activating on the phrase instead. So, I would activate, I guess, on measure 140. And that would be a tilt act, because it's doing a lot of strumming. I would just tilt around here as soon as I saw the phrase, and we're just probably missing out on the squeeze, to be honest with you. So maybe 400 point deficit because it's a chord squeeze, maybe 600, I'm not sure. But yeah, activating around here, just tilting, doesn't have to be specific. And then it would end some point before the end. And yeah, I think 480k, obviously not getting that, but maybe about 476 was what I was getting with this path. It did actually lose me once on a double FC, which was the finals, like the grand final. But at that point, you know, it comes so close down to the wire that I was going up against GRH, who can whammy and squeeze better than I can. Probably due to choice of the guitar. I'm not sure what use, maybe a Weetar, so that helped out. But not complaining or making excuses. Yeah, sometimes the safer path does not work if your opponent is that good. But anyway, that's War. Path was pretty fine. So yeah, we'll move on to the notes of it now. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the notes for War. Now, this was a strum boss, and although it was the song that drained your stamina the most, especially if you're not warmed up, it's pretty hard to FC this, because I think it's about 16, 17 NPS all the way through, probably 16. But yeah, so although it is draining on your stamina, I think most would agree that the solo is actually the hardest part of this song. Having said that, we'll look at every different part of the song and how you might tackle it in terms of strumming. So, intro is this, it's straight 16ths in 4s, so it's kind of obvious how you do it already. You just strum in 4s. If you have a rake, you could probably make it easier, but if you don't, it's just obviously standard strumming. Maybe you want to vibrate it a bit, probably not though. So, I must have strummed that somehow. So yeah, you just want to be accenting every time there's a fret change, and you need to be warmed up. You need ideally do a few runs of the song first, and then you'll be warmed up enough to do it, like no problems with the stamina whatsoever. I said this before in BGM 6, but if you have trouble with stamina, you just got to play this song a few times and then you'll immediately have more stamina. It just works that way. So that's pretty self-explanatory. You just do it that way. The main verse, just intro D really. Or I guess it's not intro D. Actually, I'll pick the verse because that is a better demonstration. So, same strum speed. All the strumming in this song is the same strum speed. You have these nice breaks in between. Well, there is whammy, but you can rest your strumming arm. Okay, I was messing about a bit there. But yeah, it's just ends on downs. I reset strum it because the strumming is fast enough where if you do just straight alt strumming through it, it's going to make it a little bit confusing maybe, or it's going to be harder to accent your measures or your bars, so just a little break. The breaks are long enough that Explorer bounce back isn't really an issue, so that's okay. But besides that, there isn't really anything to say, you know, it's just a bit like the way it ends. You have a single note followed by a chord and a small break, just a bit longer and a bit faster. So pre-chorus is the same as the intro, but it just lasts a bit longer. And parts like that, and especially the bit later on, are why you need to be warmed up for the song, because the verse 1B will be taking your stamina away a little bit, because although it does have short breaks in it, it does last quite a while, and you haven't had a break since the last set of sustains, so you know you could start to run out of stamina during this bit, if at any point. So yeah, you need to be warmed up, as I've said already. Chorus. So this is just sets of 9, so they all end on downs, and the chords make that obvious as well. I talked about Existo Vulgar, like I mentioned it in the path part. So it is that strum pattern. If you know how that goes, it literally starts. The song starts with and then a break, and this is exactly what that is. So you just go in sets of 9, 2 sets of 4, then a down strum. But you don't want to be accenting every 4 notes, because that'll kill your stamina too much. There's no reason to do that. As long as you know it ends on down, you know the strum pattern, then it's going to be fine. And that's exactly the same. The yellows there, just which switches from opens to yellows. And if you wanted to, I think I was doing, just immediately after the chord I would just be holding the green as well. Doesn't really make that much of a difference, but you know, just a little thing. Verse 2 is the biggest stamina test, because although you've had a break in the solo, it is the longest part of in an uninterrupted strumming at this speed. And it feels a little bit like a faster tempo as well. I don't know if that's true, but at least feels that way. So I don't know how many measures that is, like 7 measures of this. Yeah, and this is the one instance, those little bits in the intro as well, I forgot to mention, these little bits are the only instances where it ends on up strums. And it's obvious that it ends on an up strum, but you know, you can be so used to ending on downs that your body just does it anyway, and there's nothing you can do about it. But yeah, it ends on an up strum. Other than that, it's just, you know, you got to be warmed up, as I've said multiple times already, and just keep going. After this point, especially if you're on an FC, like, and you have the adrenaline of the tournament, you can probably just make your way through it. You have more energy than usual. And then just at the very end, just as a little footnote, I guess. All of this is the same as the chorus, but I guess the very last note, if you just, I don't know, if you close your eyes for some reason, the last note changes from being a chord to an open note, and that's just one thing. You need to remember that. Well, you don't have to remember it, but
I don't know. If you decide to forget that it's there, it could throw you off, I guess. But that's just a very, very little thing. Last note is like one of the least valuable notes in this song, so it wouldn't cost your score that much. Now, solo is where most of the explaining is going to come into it. So there's quite a lot of transitions from strumming into like tapping sections. So I'll just start from solo, I guess. We'll slow it down. Doesn't need to go quite down to 25. But this first part, so immediately after we end the strumming in section before, we're going to be transitioning into tapping straight away as quick as we can, really. So we're set up, and I use this is the method I used for like through the Fire and Flames intro for the longest time, where I'd use my middle finger on the red and use the three fingers, not including the pinky, on my tapping hand to hit the yellow, blues, and orange. And so that's what I do here, because it lasts for such a short amount of time that it's not going to be much of a problem. So obviously we're anchoring green and just, and that's the castle bit. Then just standard tapping this bit. I've gone over how I think about my standard tapping before, so I'm not going to break it down note by note. But this is just standard tapping. But we're going to change from standard tapping on the very last yellow there. We're going to one hand that bit, just because it transitions into strumming. And then that orange bit ends on a up strum. Okay, so that's all you really need to know for solo A. So yeah, that tapping method, then just standard tapping. All in first position, one hand that bit. All of these are down strum transitions, ends on an up. And then this is just fretting. Okay, so solo A up to speed now. And yeah, this transition into the strumming is probably the hardest part of at least this part of the solo. Yeah, so there we have solo A. Solo B. Now, I actually probably shouldn't have set the thing there. I'm going to include the very end of solo A because it's another transition. So I'll include this part. And yeah, there's a few strum notes here. It's not very fast transition, but it exists. So I'll slow it down once again. So yeah. After we hit this orange up here, we want to be transitioning as quick as possible, tapping these yellows. I just one hand the reds, otherwise it's just standard trapping in the first position. This is pretty self-explanatory, this tapping bit. So two reds, one-handed there. But yeah, just tapping the highest note, it's just trills. And then after that very short break there, I'm just going to one-hand that bit out, because it transitions into strumming again. One-hand this bit. And that ends on an up as well. And there are a few random strums here, but they shouldn't be much of an issue. So we'll do it up to speed now. Transition, one hand those ones, standard tap these. One hand, up strum, random strums. Okay, so I'll do solo A and B, because that whole thing sort of just comes at you at once. Then you have a short break when solo C starts, so besides this one whammy, you just sort of zone out for, I guess, a few measures. And the last thing to worry about is the tapping bit there, which is another transition. Because you're whammying, you're going to be one-handing into this tapping bit. And I guess one thing that sort of threw me off for some reason is this red to open here. I don't know why, just a mental block. Well, yeah, just remembering that the open note is the strum and not the red. I did miss it in in the tournament once, but I ended up winning the song anyway, luckily. But yeah, that was one thing that gave me a very small mental block, I guess. Whammying. Which makes that transition pretty quick. Now what I do there, I do some pretty quick one-handing as far as like normal play is concerned, and one-hand these 3 reds. Alright dude, I didn't too fast there. But then standard tapping the rest. One-handing this ending bit. Okay. So one more. A lot of whammying here, which makes this transition awkwarder than it needs to be. And this isn't in like 16ths or anything like trill, it's sort of in like 5s maybe. It doesn't matter, but as long as you know it's a little bit quicker. But anyway, yeah, that's solo C. Yeah, didn't tap the last one for some reason. But anyway, yeah, that's how I do solo C. So we'll do the full thing now. I'll try and commentate what I'm doing. So this method first, now standard tapping. One hand the last one. Yeah, it's hard to do this one, commenting on it, isn't it? Oh, why did it miss the first note there? Upstrum. Quick transition, one hand the reds. One hand this bit, upstrum again. Then a couple of random strums. Open is a strum, whammying. Quick transition, standard tapping. Yeah, well I messed up the transition there, but yeah, you get the gist of the solo there. There's quite a lot of transitioning from strumming to tapping to I guess the very beginning can be a bit awkward because you come in right out of a lot of strumming, so your arm could be a bit tired, which could force your tapping at the very beginning to go wrong. But yeah, that's how I tackle the solo anyway, and the rest of it is just a case of being warmed up and knowing really what the patterns are. You don't even really need to know what the patterns are, they're pretty basic. But yeah, that is that, so we'll do a run of the song now. Okay, so that was War. Yeah, it seemed to be a particularly good run, 478k, only 2k off optimal on a boss song, so it's pretty good. I think that I randomly got like half bar on the second phrase whammy, second activation whammy, which I've never done before. I didn't know it was possible, but yeah, that was pretty cool. So yeah, that is those are the boss songs, and that'll be it really. I haven't uploaded or recorded any of the regular playoffs yet, but this is canonically the last video. I'm just uploading it early because it made sense to. So yeah, thanks to Schmooey for doing the deluge part of this video, but thanks for watching, and I'll see you around.